Batman's mentor in the art of stealth is coming to town as Batman and Santa team up in the Silent Night. Welcome to the Comicstorian Full Story channel, where we take old and new full stories from Comicstorian and put them here to give you a better viewing experience. And you heard that correct. Santa taught Batman how to be stealthy, and he's back in town seeking Bruce's help against Krampus. This is the 4-issue 2023 DC Comics Holiday Special, Batman Santa Claus Silent Night by Jeff Parker. I hope you enjoy.
Snow falls from the dark skies over Gotham City. It is a quiet night on the streets as the Yuletide carolers crunch through the snow and sing for those Gotham nights out in the cold. But the Christmas-time joy is interrupted by a screech from above as a human-sized bat-like creature comes and swoops in. People scream and they try to run as the monsters land among them, fangs biting, claws slashing. A short time later, the police have roped off the area and investigators have begun their work. They are quickly joined by the dynamic duo. Somebody really doesn't like carolers, Damian notes. Batman looks at his son grimly. Damian, only say things like that around me, and try to get to a point where you only think about them. Batman tells his son. They look at the bodies, and Batman notes that all of the prime suspects are still locked tight in Arkham Asylum. Crouching down in the snow, Batman removes one of the sheets and finds that the body has been drained of its blood. Man-Bat is accounted for, and doesn't do exsanguination. It sounds more like an occult, so I called in an expert. Behind him, a snowman begins to glow, and Damian prepares a batarang, but Batman motions for his son to calm down. That's our expert, he explains. The snowman disappears and reveals Zatanna. She adjusts her top hat and pulls her winter cloak tighter against the cold. Sorry for taking so long, I was in Europe. I checked the weather and saw a perfect chance to use this snow transport spell, she says with a smile. She looks over the body and tells Batman that she's going to use a spell to see the last thing that the carolers saw. Images then flash over the body, revealing the vampire bat creatures. Yuck! Do vampires now look like mole rats? Damian asks as he studies the animalistic creatures. They're the Drog. It's a vampiric strain of the Norse undead, Zatanna explains. But Batman senses something. The creatures have returned to the scene of the crime, and he whirls around quickly, throwing a batarang as one of the monsters swoops down on him and Zatanna. The creature screeches with anger and wheels away. But behind them, Batman hears a startled cry from his son. He turns to find Damian in the clutches of another of the monsters, and it's carrying him away. Robin, stretch your legs! Batman shouts, rushing forward, grabbing Robin's legs. It pulls him out of the monster's grasp, and the pair land lightly on the ground, looking up, watching as the Drog circles back towards them. This one isn't running like its friend did, Robin notes. But there's a snap and a wooden stake pierces the creature's chest, sending it tumbling into the ground where it stays. Batman and Robin look up in surprise to see a glowing-eyed reindeer standing on a nearby rooftop. A red-clad, white-bearded warrior armed with a crossbow on his back. I came as soon as I heard. The Drog never got farther than Northern Europe before. For them to be free again and in Gotham is bad tidings, the man says. The reindeer snorts and he pats it gently. Easy there, Prancer, Santa Claus says gently. Zatanna looks at him in surprise. Oh wow, it's really him, she whispers, but Batman actually doesn't seem surprised. Chris, it's been a long time, Batman says, and Damian is shocked. But Batman explains that they worked together in his time abroad as Bruce Wayne. Chris lands on the streets and looks down at Zatanna. Zatanna, 1964 Foxhawk Lane, he says with a smile. But Damian isn't buying it, pointing out that he doesn't believe in Santa Claus. You and me both, kid, Chris grunts. An alert from Nightwing then comes over the radio, warning of another Drog attack across the city. At the park, the Drog have attacked another group of citizens, but Nightwing, Batgirl, and the GCPD have arrived. While Batgirl kicks at the monsters, trying to keep them from biting people, Nightwing manages to wrap up a group of them. We don't have vampire hunting gear, so all I can do is hold them off, he shouts, but the creatures pull him to the ground with their combined strength. Okay, maybe not. Could definitely use some backup, Nightwing shouts as he kicks the monsters, trying to keep them away. But then he looks up in surprise as the creatures are suddenly impaled on the antlers of a giant reindeer. Got your message, Dick Grayson. 1007 Mountain Drive, Chris says with a smile. Nightwing looks at him in shock. There's no way. he whispers, and Batman lands nearby with Zatanna, who uses her magic to open up a portal to the other side of the world, bathing the Drog in sunlight and seeing them screech into the night. Kris Kringle nods in satisfaction. "They'll have to sleep it off. It gives us a day," he says, and Batman nods, explaining that he put a tracker on one of the creatures. So the Bat family gathers around, surprised that Batman knows Santa Claus, but Nightwing shrugs. "So it's all true. I thought he was just telling me that to make Santa sound more cool," he tells Babs and Damian. Zatanna joins them, opening an ancient book from her library and using her magic to create images in the air. She explains that the true history of Santa was that he was a mighty woodsman and carpenter of the Asgardians. Kris would join the wild hunt every year, helping the gods hunt down the evil creatures that plagued mankind. One day he hunted Krampus, but discovered that the creature wasn't evil and instead merely mischievous and liked to scare the children. Though they were unsure why, both Kris and Krampus were left on Earth when the Rainbow Bridge was destroyed. The legends of the gods faded and the two remained on Earth, beginning the legends of Santa Claus and Krampus. But Kris pushes through the magical images. Silly tales. He tells them all to stay close until the Draugr are defeated. Though Batgirl questions him about being busy this time of year, and Kris waves it off, explaining that he hasn't been needed for Christmas for centuries, but he still doesn't understand how the Drog were freed of their magical prison that he had trapped them in. "It was Krampus!" Damian says, showing them an image on his phone of a cloven hoof print that he found at the last scene. Suddenly, one of the Drog bodies begins to move, and a flower grows from the creature's chest, and it begins to speak. "A gift for one of ye, 'tis the season." Krampus's voice whispers from the dead Drog's mouth. The flower twists and spits a green goo at Zatanna. It covers her body and she falls to the ground. "I put the gift in a pretty package. I remember the traditions," the voice whispers, and Batgirl tries to pull the goo off of Zatanna, but it won't come off. "I can't have a magician hunting me. She might be able to lock me away. The toy maker. Together we created this wonderful day. Then you threw me into the void, and now I am back in the world," Krampus says, a mist escaping from the Drog's mouth, swirling through the air and finally becoming solid, revealing the creature. "You should have killed me. All the horrors we trapped. I will free them all, and Christmas will become a day of misery." The image of Krampus fades, and Kris picks up the body of Zatanna, calling Prancer to his side. There's a swirl of light and a snowstorm blows through the park. Santa disappears into the light, but leaves behind a small box. Batman walks over picking it up, and he looks to the others, leading them to one of the bunkers beneath the city. "You know, a Christmas tree down here would really freshen up the sewage smell, Batman," Nightwing points out, but Batman asks them all to be quiet as he opens the box. Images begin to swirl around them, and the Bat family are shown Kris and Krampus's past. The spirit of Kris Kringle appears, explaining that his helpers are healing Zatanna as they speak. He tells them that these images of his past will help them understand Krampus and what happened between him and Kris. We see an ancient Viking village where a little boy steals a doll from a girl, but Krampus is there shouting at the bad children. He picks them up and places them in his sack, claiming that he will make them into soup for the night. When Kris Kringle arrives, he fights off Krampus, but it's all for show, an ancient form of good cop, bad cop. Santa makes the little boys promise to be good, offering them toys instead of Krampus's sack. As the children run away, they promise to be good next year, and Kris Kringle smiles, patting Krampus on the back. "It works, Claus," Krampus says with a smile, and Kris nods with joy. "The children will take the lesson. One day there will be order in these lands," he says. Time passes, civilizations grow. Kris and Krampus walk through the streets, but now the children laugh at Krampus, no longer fearing him. In frustration, Krampus grabs one, carrying him away. "Krampus, stop!" Kris Kringle shouts, unsure of what his friend is doing. Kris follows after him, finding Krampus in an alleyway, blood on his hands. "Where are the children?" Kris Kringle asks in surprise. Krampus smiles at him, licking his lips. "Krampus ate them! Krampus ate them all!" he cries with cheer. Horrified by what his friend did, Kris Kringle pulls out one of the touchstones that he would use to bind the monsters of old. He holds it up, binding Krampus to it, binding him to a wasteland of living ghosts. But he's surprised, because the children were found. They were laughing and enjoying treats that Krampus had given them. It was all a game. Krampus bribed the children, and I made a terrible mistake, Kris explains to the Bat family. He journeyed into the void with the touchstone, but Krampus was already gone, disappeared into the ethereal prison. I searched for years among the outcasts, but I never heard Krampus's wild laugh again. I'd given him up for the dead until today. He looks at the Bat family, explaining that one of the touchstones in his workshop has gone missing. Batman nods, explaining that during the Night Terrors event, the borders between realities were torn, which means Krampus could have returned thanks to that. He asks Kris Kringle to help Zatanna, promising that they have friends who can help deal with the Drog. Back in the city, the morning sun has begun to fall over the snowy rooftops of the city. The Drog begin to awaken. They look up to see another of their kind flying towards them, something clasped in her claws. But they sense that something is wrong. "It's not a Drog!" one of them shouts, and Miss Martian tosses the flashbang into the nest, wheeling away, transforming back into her superhero form. "I have their full attention," she says over the radio as the Drog screeches in anger and begin to chase her. She leads them back into the city where the monsters are attacked by the Justice League. Arrows fly through the air from Oliver's bow, piercing several of the creatures in the chest, and Black Canary sees many of the flock flying with her canary cry. On the moors of Scotland, Krampus can sense the Drog falling. But the next creatures that he releases will be more dangerous, cause more death and pain. A voice speaks to him, promising that when he finally frees the giants, then Krampus will be truly free to run and scare the children of the world. He holds up the touchstone, opening the door to the prison in the void, and flocks of harpies look up in surprise as Krampus motions them back into the world. "Wake, warriors!" In the city, more Draugr are falling. Batman grabs a hold of one, allowing Robin to throw a dropped arrow at it and kick it deeper into the monster's chest. It looks like the last of the beasts have fallen, but Canary motions to a blur in the sky. "Too fast to be one of them," Oliver notes, and Batman nods. "It's not. I knew he'd hear about this." Batman sighs. Superman suddenly slams into the ground in front of them and looks up, almost hurt, as he stares at Batman. "You never told me that you knew Santa?" Superman says to Batman. Hyde Park, London, Christmas Eve morning. People are running in fear as the harpies have begun their attack, grabbing them and pulling them into the air. Above, the British military has been called in to help against the attack, but the harpies are destroying their helicopters. The helicopter begins to spin out of control, but something is suddenly there. Hawkgirl knocks the monsters aside with her mace, ripping the canopy off, pulling the pilot to safety and flying them away. More of the creatures swerve to attack her, but they are stopped by Green Lantern's shields. "Don't worry, I'm here," Joe says, the Green Lantern from the far sector, using her constructs to grab the pilot and allow Hawkgirl to use her mace once more. She then drops the pilot to safety, creating a green sword as more of the monsters begin to swarm them. Does Batman always ask you to handle threats without saying what to expect? Joe asks Hawkgirl, pointing out that they could have come a little better prepared. But Wonder Woman suddenly swoops down into the monsters, knocking them aside. "Here's the plan. Break their formation and keep breaking it," she shouts. The trio of superwomen leap amongst the monsters, knocking them aside, but Wonder Woman realizes that she might be able to reason with them. She looks and finds the harpy with the largest plumage. "She's the elder. Keep the others back so that I can question her," Wonder Woman says. She then flies at the monster, wrapping the lasso of truth around the queen's neck. "The others follow you, Broodmother," Wonder Woman says, now able to understand and communicate with the Harpy Queen. "Why do you hunt here?" Wonder Woman says. "We were freed! We were sworn to attack the walkers below by Krampus," the Queen says, so Wonder Woman nods, explaining that they have been attacking them, so their task has been completed. "Call your flock to follow us," Wonder Woman says. The Queen agrees, and the trio lead the flock of harpies away from the city. Elsewhere, the rest of the heroes have journeyed to find the hidden workshop of Kris Kringle. A portal opens up to reveal a tall elf who greets them. Superman looks on in shock and awe. "We were expecting Santa," he says with disappointment. The elf nods, leading them back through the portal, explaining that Claus once gave them a home in his secret valley, so they repay him back by using their fine craftsmanship for a portion of the year. "He has found another wild thing released by Krampus. That is why I am fetching you. Ages ago, he caught a sea serpent and put it in deep sleep beneath the ford." The elf explains, and the heroes step through the portal to find Kris Kringle astride Prancer, fighting against a giant serpent. "We should have called Aquaman!" Nightwing shouts in surprise. "It's by the shore. We don't have time to bug him every time something is in the water," Batgirl tells him, so Superman leaps into the fight, punching the serpent hard, knocking it away. "Hold on, Santa!" he shouts, and the serpent splashes back into the water as Superman turns to Santa in awe. "Hi, sir, he begins to say, and Santa smiles. "Kent, Rural Route 38, Smallville. You asked for a new coffee maker for Ma and Pa," he says with a twinkle in his eye. And Superman smiles. I can't believe you read my letter," he whispers. But he's interrupted by Blue Beetle, who shouts to him that the serpent is getting back up. The beast lunges forward, biting down on both Superman and Blue Beetle. "I thought I knocked you out," Superman shouts as the two of them get trapped in its mouth. They then begin to try and escape, but Santa shouts for them. "I know you two can hear me. With the super ears and alien machine, you're in the perfect place to move the serpent without fighting back. Lift it out of the water and follow me," Santa shouts. Superman nods, flying up, lifting the great beast from inside. The rest of the heroes watch in surprise as the serpent and Santa fly away. "You know, maybe the weirdest thing I've seen all week," Batgirl says quietly. The elf nods, opening up another portal. He's leading them back to the Secret Valley. Prancer is fast, but we can arrive sooner. He motions the hero to follow him, and they step through another portal and arrive in Santa's Secret Valley in Greenland. The heroes are surprised to find Krampus standing before them, fire twirling around him as he stands before a massive ice wall. "Today, we free them all the lost souls damned by Claus," Krampus cackles. Batman doesn't hesitate, charging forward, followed by the rest of the heroes. "Take him down!" he shouts. Green Arrow fires a trank dart, but Krampus easily catches it, and he turns to look at them, and a new voice comes out of his throat. "Mortal children, the Krampus is of the gods, under but still with power." Batman kicks Krampus, throwing the creature off balance, and Black Canary charges in, hitting Krampus with a cry that sends him smashing into the ice wall. Krampus slams into it, and the weakened wall begins to crack. The creature leaps to his feet, grabbing a hold of Miss Martian, swinging her around, slamming her into the other heroes. "None may stop what has begun," the voice calls, and Krampus looks up as Superman and Santa finally arrive. "Stop, Krampus! Don't hurt anyone else!" Santa yells, and Superman charges forward. "I'll get him, Santa!" he shouts. But Santa warns Superman to be careful as something seems off. The Man of Steel moves in a blur, grabbing Krampus from behind, holding him steady. "I guess we're done here. Nice work, everybody," Nightwing calls out, believing that the fight is over. But Santa lands, heading for the glacier, explaining to the heroes that after he locked Krampus away, he stopped using the touchstones and instead trapped the creatures within this glacier. "All were deadly to mortals, but I couldn't bring myself to slay them," he explains. Krampus opens its mouth and the voice speaks again. "They think they win when they lose," he hisses. He looks over his shoulder at Superman, whose eyes begin to glow. "Both take the mighty man, and I remain in the wild one," the voice says when Superman suddenly releases Krampus, an evil smile spreading on his face, and he flies into the air, slamming back down, knocking the other heroes away. "We are here. We have all the power," the new voice says from Superman's mouth, and in the confusion, Krampus charges forward, grabbing Damian. "Krampus takes the naughty children," he says as he opens up a portal and disappears. Meanwhile, Superman flies up, slamming his fist into the glacier, cracking it wide open. "All will be free," he shouts as the ice begins to crumble. Santa motions everyone back. "He's broken open the glacier. Move back," he shouts, and the ice crumbles as the mist clears, as Santa looks up at the great monsters beginning to stomp forward. "Your day of reckoning is here, Claus. The monster kind is loose once more." In Santa's hidden valley in Greenland, the heroes are leaping into battle against the massive monsters that have been released from the collapse of the ice wall, when overhead Superman flies around, his eyes glowing with an unearthly possession. All the banished return for vengeance. Christmas will become another day of darkness. "Not how I saw my holiday going," Black Canary yells before using the canary cry to scatter some of the monsters. Meanwhile, Damian Wayne, now having been kidnapped by Krampus, finds himself in the creature's secret lair, a former gnome hall beneath a tree. Damian looks around from his cage, hearing Krampus talking to a strange voice deeper in the hall. "Why only cage the boy? Do what must be done." But Krampus shakes his head. "No, not kill the child. Krampus only scares. Teach not to be naughty," Krampus says, now of his own facilities. But the voice continues to speak, trying to convince Krampus to do what he must to return the wilds to the world. Meanwhile, the fight is continuing, a massive troll knocking Green Arrow to the ground, but Santa is there, slamming the monster with his fist, driving it back. "Thanks, Big Red. Sorry I always ate the cookies," Oliver says, and Canary and Miss Martian try to fight off Superman, but their powers have little effect on the evil Man of Steel. "Take Claus, he falls, they all fall," Superman says to the monsters down below. Santa rushes to Batman's side, questioning how Superman could have changed so quickly. "Something must have transferred from Krampus when he grabbed him," Batman says, but he motions to the fight ahead of them. "Help the others, I have a contingency." He then turns to Blue Beetle. "Beetle, take down Superman." Jaime is shocked by the order, but rushes into the fight with Superman smiling at him as he rushes at the alien warrior. A bug to crush. But Beetle realizes that Superman doesn't seem to remember all of his powers and weaknesses. "You don't remember that I could generate kryptonite radiation," Jaime shouts, his appendages reaching out glowing green with kryptonite grabbing a hold of the Man of Steel. Superman bellows in pain as they both begin to fall out of the sky. "Can I stop? I'm like really hurting him, Batman!" Jaime shouts to Batman, but the Dark Knight shakes his head. "You have to make that thing leave him. Keep going," Batman shouts back. As Superman plummets to the ground, a strange voice then comes out of his lips. "They will kill him to destroy us. We must take a new host," the voices shout. But the heroes watch in horror as strange energy begins to leak out of Superman, taking on almost human features as it begins to evaporate. "Cannot see, only darkness. It is oblivion," the voices whisper as they disappear into nothing without a host nearby. Freed from the spirit's will, Superman slams into the ground, but Batman rushes to his side, checking his pulse. "Beetle, charge up. He'll need a 2 teravolt burst to restart his heart," Batman shouts, but the heroes turn in shock as a massive Yeti leaps over the mountain, and it blows to create an avalanche that sends a tidal wave of snow crashing down over all of them. Meanwhile, in Krampus' secret lair, Damian is watching as the creature comes towards him with a spear prepared to kill him. "Well, I don't agree with this course of action at all," Robin whispers as he realizes that Krampus is possessed by an evil spirit. "Make him an ornament for Claus's tree," the spirit whispers, and Krampus nods his head but then looks at the weapon in his hand. "But when does Krampus use a spear? Wits are weapons, clever tricks." The spirit drives him onward, pushing him towards the cage, and Damian steps back, his mind racing as he tries to remember the history of Krampus from Santa's visions in Zatanna's book. But that's when Damian has a brilliant idea. He begins to cry, gripping the bars of his cage. "I want to go home! I miss my father!" He begins to yell, asking his father to forgive him for being bad, and he promises never to do it again. Krampus stares at him in shock and with shaky hands drops the spear. Meanwhile, over at the avalanche, Nightwing opens his eyes. "Can anyone hear me? I think I was out for like a minute. I'm also trapped under like a ton of ice and can't move. Did Superman snap out of it? Is this troll about to step on me?" He asks as he hears footsteps crunching through the snow, but a hand reaches out for him, easily pulling him to freedom. "Sorry it took us so long, Dick," Diana says with a smile. Nightwing looks to where Joe and Hawkgirl are pulling the others to safety. "Rescued from an avalanche? The perfect gift," Dick Grayson says with a smile. As Santa pulls Superman out, the recovered Man of Steel tells him what he saw when he was possessed. He explains that the void that Santa used was a part of the Phantom Zone. Those spirits, who had long been there and lost their forms, had found Krampus and possessed him, and they were attempting to free themselves and all the other creatures that had been lost there. But these spirits had long since lost any memories of their own, and they used Krampus's memories and their own rage. The monsters all seem to have taken off that way, Batgirl points out, pointing to the tracks in the snow. Superman nods, explaining that the creatures mean to destroy his workshop. "But I've got a boy to find," Santa says. As the rest of the heroes move to stop the monsters, Santa heads off with the Bat family to find Damian. They step into the nearby woods, where Santa listens to the trees, explaining that they can hear the wishes of others, which is how he always knew what little children wanted. He presses his face against the tree and he listens. He hears Damian. "Father, where are you? The Krampus got me! I promise I'll be good!" Damian's shouting, and Santa nods, looking to Batman. "Good lad. He's in the Gnome Hall on the other side of the mountains," Santa says, waving his hand, opening a portal. They step through the portal into the hall, finding Krampus fighting against the spirits as it tries to calm Damian. But Batman leaps forward, kicking the creature. "Tie him quick, before he escapes to the zone," Batman shouts, and the rest of the heroes leap to stop Krampus. But Damian rushes into the creature's arms. Krampus, you caught me! Finish the game. Give me to my family and I'll be good. Robin shouts, and Krampus looks at Damian. Boy, is sorry? Krampus whispers. Santa and the others realize that Krampus is winning against the spirit as it begins to be pulled back into the void. No, let me back in, beast! The spirit shouts as it's pulled out of Krampus. But Krampus has returned to his senses. He reaches out, lifting Damian into the air before turning to Batman. Here, Kinderfather! Remember, Krampus is always watching! Krampus giggles with glee. And with this, the spirit completely disappears back into the void, and Krampus is freed. The mischievous Christmas creature looks around in confusion. Where is Krampus? He asks, turning to his old friend and asking Santa if he was lost. Santa looks at him solemnly, puts a hand on his shoulder. You were, old friend, but now you're home, where you belong. Meanwhile, the rest of the heroes have defeated the monsters, though they question what they should do with them. I know a planet where these creatures could fit in just fine, Joe points out, and they all turn as a portal opens and Santa returns with the rest of the family. Joe, that would be perfect. I will not imprison them again, Santa says with a smile. And with the danger defeated, Santa turns to the heroes thanking them, and he turns with emotion in his sleigh and reindeer land nearby. You all live up to the greatness I saw in your youth. You've saved lives and helped me begin fixing my greatest mistake, Santa says with joy. He turns to Krampus, asking him to once again journey into the night to complete their ancient ritual. This night grew beyond me ages ago, but I can still make a few stops, Santa says as he gets into the sleigh, but Damian steps forward asking why Santa would go out. You started this tradition, and it happens anyway, so why still go out? Damian asks, and Batman believes that it's because Santa is driven. Diana thinks it's because he seeks out the hope and goodness of the world, but Superman looks at the old man. You do it for you, because nothing feels better than giving, Superman says. Santa smiles, touching his nose. He's letting Clark know that he's right. Santa then looks down to Robin, asking if the young boy would like to join him on this Christmas Eve, and Damian looks to his father, who smiles. Have fun, son. As the sleigh begins to leave, Santa looks to the heroes and motions to his workshop. He tells them that a meal awaits them inside, and no time will pass while they make merry. Go in together, a few hours of not worrying about the world, he offers them. The sleigh leaps into the sky, and with smiles, the heroes head inside. They eat, they laugh, and they talk to each other. They take a few hours just for themselves, with Barbara raising a glass to Dick. Merry Christmas, Mr. Grayson, she says with a smile. And Happy New Year, Miss Gordon, he says back. And to all, a good night.
And there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and if you did, be sure to check out the 2024 special as the Silent Night returns. But as for now, I hope you all have a great holiday season, and we will see you next time. Rest in peace, Benny.